I know most folks, especially new players, tend to avoid the frosty mountain passage, and the reasons for it are evident enough. No other end-of-map penalty is as penalizing. The stacking frostbite debuff is incredibly nasty, and everywhere the mob density feels high, especially where kobolds are involved. On top of all that, it has perhaps the only instant death feature native to any map, and it will make you unresurrectable and cause you to lose all your gear. The Abyss can kill you horribly, but if you wait until the last 2.5 minutes, you can jump in and farm hella AP. There are several unique monsters down here, and quite a few of them are required for quests. First off, the Frost Imp, the Frost Sentinel, the mace-wielding skeletons, and executioner-style skeletons, as well as the Wendigo, are all unique to this zone, this second level, this abyss. You will find no Yetis this deep, but instead a multitude of Wendigos behind every craven altar of false worship. The Yetis and the Wendigos share two attributes: a massive health pool and the ability to run faster than you. The Wendigo does not have a charge attack, and only possesses 2 attack animations. Despite this, it can be very difficult to deal with due to its high damage. Almost everyone will cheese these creatures, standing on a high ledge while slapping its head. Unfortunately, this creature's head is not its weak spot. The weak spot is the glowing, frozen heart in its center of mass. I'll show you how to kill him without cheese later. For now, let's focus on surviving the surface level. First off, these halberdiers are everywhere on both levels, and I should tell you all I can about them before we move any further. Like the Wendigo, they only have 2 cards in their deck, and you have to learn to recognize the audio cue for the slower one, which requires you to jump. Other than that, learning to block or dodge his much more common face-stabbing attack is all the work you have to do to beat this guy every time. Next, we'll discuss the giants. These guys are found only on the first level, like the Yetis, but unlike the Yeti, they trudge very slowly towards you, often giving you the time you need to get through a doorway and close it. But if you're farming for AP or if players are a problem, you may prefer to learn how to deal with these guys, and don't worry, it's a breeze, albeit a chilly one. There are 2 variants of the giant. The one called a Berserker is the one wielding 2 hammers, and he has a charge attack, a special kind of attack he reserves only for foes who are too distant for the other, more simple attacks. This footage is from before the update, when the Berserker would still intersperse the charge attack randomly, no matter your distance. But be warned, this is his most damaging, hardest to dodge attack, and currently, it only occurs if you get too far from the Berserker. The Shielder is much more tame. Again, having only 2 attack patterns, it is worth noting that near the terminal portion of his attacks, he will begin to start homing in on his target, but only if they're in front of him. For the fainting strike that he does, the tracking begins a little bit sooner, and that makes it really hard to get out of the way in time, especially if you're not familiar with the moveset. If you're having trouble recognizing one attack from the other, then just back all the way up and space his attack with distance, and then hit him when he's done. You'll get fewer attacks in, but you'll get it done eventually. It took me a while to learn what I was doing with this fellow, even though he really is very simple with his 2 attack patterns. Once you figure it out, though, it's easy as pie. At some point recently, they began boosting the amount of adventure points that you can earn from killing sub-boss monsters like this. They seem to want to make mastery key to the grinding of adventure points, at least on the level that you need to get the demigod status. So if you want those cosmetics, you're just going to have to learn how to fight these guys. It's critical to your aggregate adventure point score. You just have to grind. You have to repeat the process, killing them again and again and again and again and again and again. Look, I'm just gonna say it. If you don't feel like you're performing a genocide, then you're not doing it right. Can I help you?
Are you gonna kill me?
No, I'm just farming the giants. Oh, what the fuck? You put the Yeti in here? Well, I guess the warlocks left us no choice. We've got to talk about the Yetis now. The combination of speed, knockback, and a pretty sizable chunk of health makes people afraid to deal with these fellows on open ground. But their attack pattern is probably the most predictable one in the entire game. Every single time he attacks, it always starts off the same way, with a left-pawed uppercut from the player's right-hand side. This is very difficult to dodge, so I simply recommend blocking. If you have a buckler, you'll stagger the Yeti, and you'll just end up repeatedly staggering it and getting in a swipe each time you stagger it. If you're using the lantern shield, like you should be, then you cannot stagger the Yeti, but you can block the first attack and then riposte while strafing to your right or the Yeti's left. Going for more than 2 hits is only possible if the Yeti chooses to perform his second swipe, which costs the Yeti more time. Otherwise, if he opts out of the second swipe, you have to be immediately ready to raise your shield for another left-pawed uppercut. If you figure out where your shield is supposed to go, the only thing that can get you is confined spaces or too many mobs aggroed on you while the Yeti is chasing you around. Because of the Yeti's speed, it can be difficult to separate from him to deal with the kobolds. I recommend being very careful with Yeti aggro when other mobs are around. Once you learn how to kill him, though, a whole new group extract opens up. The elevator on the north end. This elevator lever is damn near impossible for the average character to interact with successfully due to the Yeti that will cancel your action via knockback from his swipes. But if you learn how to deal with these guys calmly, you'll find that between the abyss, the 2 boats, and your brand new shiny elevator, there's always a close nearby extract that will work for 3 or more people. I just want to point out that the goblin elevator and the 2 rafts on the ice mountain both return every 3 minutes like clockwork. I want to show you some footage of the 3 skeletons we haven't really talked about yet, and I also want to extol the breakthrough ability and its secret potential on this particular map. These skeletons may seem new and scary, but the axeman has only 1 attack pattern and the mace wielder has multiple. But the mace man's attacks are all blocked in the same way, they all come from the same direction. If you wind up taking the frostbite debuff whilst fighting multiple frost enemies, breakthrough can save your life by immediately clearing all stacks of the debuff and immunizing you to it for a further 10 seconds at base duration. It's also one of the few abilities that goes on cooldown at the very moment you activate the ability. Other abilities, such as Adrenaline Spike or the Warlock's Phantom Eyes, only begin their cooldown cycle after the buff has cleared your buff bar. This buff also makes you immune to the movement penalties of bear traps, makes you immune to knockback from fireballs, forceful shot rangers, and most importantly, the harpies, frost sentinels, and frost imps, all of whom possess knockback, designed to either chip at your health or, in the harpies' case, knock you straight into the abyss. Just a quick note, this fella differs from the Black Nightmare Howling Crypt's Skelly Archer by a merit of his third attack being a shotgun rather than a single shot. We all try to avoid aggroing more than one monster at a time, but you will inevitably do so, and when you do, it's very important to keep a cool head, no pun intended. One of the fun things about the Frostbite debuff is that there are either none or very few monsters which are resistant to the debuff. That means, if you've got a crowd of enemies, you can sometimes regain the advantage when they start striking each other. Their actions and movement will slow down, and it will make it easier for you to do what you need to do. If you play Bard, you can actually use the Chaotic Discord song to get them all to strike each other, and they will apply the debuff to themselves and each other, and then you can fight them normally to make sure that you get the last hit for the adventure points. Of course, sometimes even the best of us need to use door tech to stay alive. But these mobs are in between me and my extract, so I have no choice but to engage and kill them. You know, we haven't really talked about the harpies yet, and if you're unfamiliar with them, they can certainly be devastating, and they're usually positioned anywhere there's an insta-kill abyss or at least a ledge of some kind. All of their attacks apply knockback, and the animation of the Demon Bat and Harpies have both changed since this footage was recorded. But the change is pretty minor, and just puts the claws a tad bit lower, as they now attack diagonally down and forward, whereas this footage shows how it used to be much more of a lateral movement. The Lantern Shield has a pretty big blocking focus, so just be wary of dodging left and right when she starts laughing, which is the audio cue for the air blast, and that's only avoidable by staying dead center. Also, knockback of any kind can send these demi-humans straight into the insta-kill abyss, preventing you from even having to deal with the hassle. I haven't mentioned the Ice Ghost, the Demon, or either of the two spider variants. Let's go ahead and get them out of the way before we get to our dessert of Wendigo entrails. First off, the demons tend to guard single-person rope extracts, and I hope they change this in the future. Some people have a misconception about the projectiles. The truth is that the first shot goes roughly 18 degrees to the left of the demon's target. If you move quickly while close to him, you can block the first projectile and immediately move out of the way of the rest of the volley. Being further away, especially with the Lantern Shield, however, means that I have to either duck the shots or pick a projectile to negate, because these snowballs do in fact stagger my weak impact resistance. Just be wary of the fact that the spray doesn't start dead center, but rather to the player's left. His other attack generates a randomly vectored line of frost, but with the target generally residing at the center of that line. This means that all you gotta do to keep it away from you is to keep it away from the demon. When he's about to finish the cast, just back away before re-engaging the demon, and you'll usually be just fine. Breakthrough really is a must fighting this guy. Next is the Ice Ghost. This guy is pretty tame, but the trails of frost left behind when they shriek or run away can be extremely nasty, unless of course you have Breakthrough. The ice spiders are just spider mummies that explode, but the ice giant spider has a wide array of unpredictable options. Don't be afraid though. All you gotta do is wait for it to do the low strike, block it, and then punish it until it's dead. Although I'm using sprint in this clip, I would point out that breakthrough allows you to simply ignore all spider webs that end up on the ground. Your shield does need to go a little bit higher than you'd probably expect, so watch out for that. Okay guys, we did it. We reached the part of the video where I use Wendigo claws to pretend I'm Wolverine. I tried so hard to figure out how to fight him with my lantern shield, and I'm still certain that it can be done, but it requires more finesse and research than I'm willing to exhibit. There we go. The buckler, on the other hand, will stagger this nasty bugger on both of his animations. That's right, bears are stronger than Wendigos, and it's completely balanced, and anyone who complains is a big whiny baby. What was I talking about? Oh right, the Wendigo. So, a lot of my shield brothers seem to enjoy the flanged mace, the Morning Star, even the Viking sword in recent times. They attack in an overhead fashion, which is really good for PvP. This is not going to work, though, if you're trying to do anything other than the 90-second long cheesing where you slap the Wendigo head over and over and over again from a high place. The Warhammer, however, is just right for reaching in and tickling his vulnerable frozen heart. Many of the Wendigos are hidden behind levers, and this particular Wendigo has a lever that can spawn in several places, so you gotta look around. If you're running a bard, you'll have the easiest time in the world poking his heart with your rapier, but you have a lot less leeway than the plate fighter when it comes to futzing the block. A few notes. If you're further away from the Wendigo when he does his rushing attack, then you need to aim your buckler slightly lower than if you're blocking him at the start of the animation. Also, the double swipe has a tendency to hit your head, and you don't have to block as widely to your left if you back up before the swipes begin. In other words, if you're new to blocking this guy, always trigger his attack and back up, and you'll live longer to get more practice in. Oof. This penalty might be too much. You can see here that I keep hitting his arm, and it's very frustrating. Even with a weapon that's suited to the task, it's not easy to hit that frozen heart.
You know, I know how to get the Wendigo down, but I don't know how to go up. Watch out. I don't know how to get up there.
You need two people. You have to stand on it while someone else operates the lever. Anyway, let's cheese him real quick.
Crazy. I've never been up there.
Yeah, go stand on the middle there. I'll send you up.
Sure. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? It's a lion's kick.
There is one creature we haven't discussed yet, and that's because I've been saving him. The Frost Imp is really not that scary, but his projectiles are semi-permanent and apply frostbite if you trigger them. The real problem is when you end up ignoring the imp due to the other creatures being present, and there's just one spawn that puts you in exactly that position, unless you have ranged attacks to pull the harpies first, which I generally don't carry. You'll notice I'm not running breakthrough yet. I haven't learned that lesson, at least at the time I recorded this footage. And as a result, I basically get my DPS interrupted anytime I get hit with a knockback. It really doesn't help that the Frost Imp applies both frostbite and knockback either. Oh no. Hardcore. These imps give me a hassle. Harpies aren't so bad, but with the imp, fuck that imp. The frost sentinels aren't that frightening. I mean, they can't even chase you. But without breakthrough, you'll probably experience some challenge trying to kill it without ranged attacks. Much like the frost hounds, if you want to, you can just avoid the sentinels, but a lot of these other mobs, I mean, they're gonna be in your way. Now that I have never seen. Just look at how much easier this fight is with breakthrough. Isn't it great? Now that we've covered all the frost-specific mobs, I've only got one thing to show you. AP farming patterns. I'm not someone who believes in strict repetitive paths, but there are a few tricks you can learn that will greatly decrease your downtime during the surface level portion of the map. Firstly, the Crossroads module here has 2 layers. I like to move through the upper layer when crossing it the first time, then when I come back south for the Abyss, I move through the lower layer. The lower layer has a special hidden lever that can be disguised as a chalice in one of 2 places. And the lever opens up access to a very shiny chest. The module tends to make it easy for me to avoid players while also grinding lots of AP. But what if you spawn on the west side of the map? Well, by far my favorite module is the one in the southwestern corner called Maze. Again, you'll find a basement level beneath this module, but something many folks don't know is that there's actually a hidden portion to the basement. If you have fire magic or a weapon with impact 5 or greater, you can smash through the ice to access this hidden region. It has a skelly champ, a bunch of mummies, and around 4 very large chests, up to 3 of which can roll for being golden or lion's head chests. The mummies tend to drop valuable trinkets, the skelly champ is worth lots of AP, and so are the boxes. The only downside is that clearing this module can often make you vulnerable to PvP. If you're not yet familiar fighting the Skelly champion, then you should probably just pull the lever. Make sure you don't aggro him until you're ready to pull the lever. And then just leave. There's no reason to fight him. There's so much treasure and AP down here, and the Skelly champ is going to take you a long time to clear. Thanks to everyone who stuck around this far. If you're interested in watching my video on the Inferno, I'll link it right here. Mastering the lower levels of the dungeon is a great time, and you really feel like you've achieved something when you become confident in extracting from these hazardous places. Press R with the thing, with the lantern shield, to turn it on. Okay, so here, since you don't seem to know about it, I'm going to give you a quick intro. Here, slap my shield. So you know it can do this, right? It does the double riposte. But what you don't know, slap it again. You can chain your main hand in and hold the second attack. And if you haven't noticed, when you're riposting with this guy, you move normally. You're not slow the way you normally would be when you're swinging a weapon, you know? Here, I'll hit yours and you can see. Really cool. Test it out.
Oh yeah, actually it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, you gotta move around while riposting to feel it. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, we're good, right? Yeah.
Fast. Don't make me shield bash you.
Gotta put Beast Fire. I don't think I've seen one of those in a long time.
Bro, they buffed it.
Ah!